If you've done a good job with joy, then you probably don't have to worry about the bottom line. If your employees love what they're doing, your customers will love what you present. Your employees have to love the company before your customers ever will. A lot of people focus on the individual aspects of business: customer service, employee engagement, sales. But my view is that if you create a culture of excellence, then people are motivated to do everything they do to the very best of their ability. My name is William T. Thompson, and I live in Cobb County, Georgia. And it was a nice drive over to meet Cheryl and to do this interview. My background, quite diverse. I've often said I couldn't figure out what it was I wanted to do. I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force, and then a commercial pilot for Delta, 32 years as a professional pilot. Also a lawyer, business owner that I created and sold. I've run 2 government agencies and a major association representing 50,000 members. Well, my whole focus in life is on creating a culture of excellence, either in an individual's personal life or in their business. And joy, obviously, is a major component of that. It encompasses what I talk about, and I am very supportive of the concept of having joy in your life because I make it an effort to have joy in my life. I'm fortunate that I don't have to do anything I really don't want to do from a choice standpoint of view. Of course, life intervenes, and there are always things that have to be taken care of in one respect or another. But I've always been a strong proponent of balance in life. So I've always taken the time to have joy in any number of ways. Major joy in my life I've been fortunate to have on 2 occasions. First was my first child when I cut her umbilical cord, and the second was my second girl when I had the same opportunity. And they have brought tremendous joy in my life, despite the challenges of being a parent. They're both grown kids now. They have great mates. They have jobs, and they're no longer on dad's payroll, and that's a joyous thing as well. I was by myself at home in California. I got a phone call from a lady who said that she was representing Delta Airlines, and she was calling to offer me a job as a pilot. I didn't believe her because it was 6 o'clock in California, and I knew that on the East Coast it was 9 o'clock, and that Delta's employment office would not be open. And so my response was, "Who is this trying to play a trick on me?" And she said, "No, this is for real." And I said, "No, it's not for real, because I know that Delta's employment office would be closed at 9 o'clock at night." And she went on to explain that she had been given the ability to call me and other pilots because we were all around the world. And it took her about 15 minutes to convince me that it wasn't a joke. And when I finally realized that it was serious, that I was being hired as a pilot for Delta Airlines, that was one of the most joyous moments in my life. Well, joy. Joy would be the word that connects those 2 experiences. A container of joy for me would be a big cookie bin, because I am a cookie monster. And I will pass up a $10 dessert at a fine restaurant for just a good chocolate chip cookie. It brings joy to my life. I would use the cookies as an analogy, something that brings me joy, and ask those CEOs what were they doing in their company to bring their employees joy. Because joy is a part of the overall concept of excellence, which encompasses everything. My chair of joy in life would be the chair in my office, because it's where I spend most of my time. And the majority of my time spent there is doing things that I really enjoy doing. I'm fortunate in that, particularly in these times, I don't have to worry about money. And I'm very appreciative of that fact. And I realize that a lot of it has been because of my own effort and my own hard work. But there's always luck in the world because there are a lot of people that work very hard and are not making it today. To be in an Air Force jet, a fighter type jet, and to be able to go faster than the speed of sound, and be able to fly around a big puffy cloud and roll that jet upside down, it's just amazing. I mean, there's nothing like it. It is literally indescribable. I can remember going once, just above treetops, going so fast that when I looked out to the side, it was a blur. And when I looked to the front, everything was just coming at me. It reminded me of a scene in a Star Wars movie. Indescribable. I think a person should approach life from the standpoint of being able to enjoy it every day. Now, we have things that are mandatory that we do, but even then, because of the right attitude, you can find some purpose in it, some positive purpose in it. And that's what I always try to do. If you've done a good job with joy, then you probably don't have to worry about the bottom line. If your employees love what they're doing, your customers will love what you present. Your employees have to love the company before your customers ever will. A lot of people focus on the individual aspects of business: customer service, employee engagement, sales. But my view is that if you create a culture of excellence, then people are motivated to do everything they do to the very best of their ability. If there was a chair of joy in every boardroom, and an employee got to come sit in that chair of joy and talk to the board members about their unique position, the CEO would want that employee to focus on the joy that they have by being a member of that company. I was born in Orangeburg, South Carolina, to teenage parents. My dad was 19, my mother was 16, and I came along about a year and a half later. And so in a very real sense, I grew up with my mom and dad. At age 14, I became one of the first African Americans to integrate what had been an all-white high school in my hometown. And I can remember leaving my house and walking down to the end of the street to wait for the bus. And as I looked off in the distance, I saw these police cars headed in my direction. I thought there was a big accident on up the road. Imagine my shock when that caravan of police cars and the school bus stopped right in front of me. This was my federal marshal and state trooper escort on my first day of high school. And the day after that, and the day after that, because as we turned into the parking lot on that very first day, our welcoming committee was there to greet us. A baseball bat, axe handle wielding, angry crowd who rushed up and began to pound on the side of the bus before the cops could move in and push them all back. And they were yelling and screaming obscenities and racial slurs and telling us that we didn't belong over here, and we should turn around and go back to our own side of town. And as we got off the bus and walked down through these two lines of screaming humanity, being threatened, being called names, and being spat upon, I gotta tell you, it seemed to be the smart thing to get back on that bus. But we didn't get back on that bus, and that day, the 12 of us walked into history. It was, in many ways, the toughest and most turbulent days of my life, but also the most informative and educational days of my life. And to see the transition in people's lives when they were forced to put the stereotypes aside and deal with the reality of what existed on a day-to-day basis. To see that change was a very unique opportunity in life. keep a positive attitude, and get the best that you can out of life. Had I not gone to Orangeburg High, the white high school, I probably never would have been exposed and gone to the Air Force Academy, which literally changed my life. I was walking home from school one day, feeling kind of down because it had been a tough day for me at Orangeburg High. And as I was walking down this road with my shoulders kind of slumped, my head hung down, you know how you feel when you're kind of down. All of a sudden, the sun disappeared. And for a brief second, the sky got dark. As I looked up to see what was happening, the ground started shaking and I heard this loud roar as this sleek Air Force jet flew right over the top of my head. I thought it was about to crash because it was so low. But as I watched it, it kept coming down closer and closer to the ground. And at the last second, the pilot pulled it straight up and he began to roll it around and around. And you gotta understand, I'd never flown on an airplane before. And then I heard this loud boom, as I now know that the pilot had kicked in the afterburner, and that jet literally disappeared up into the clear blue sky. It's the most exciting and exhilarating thing that I'd ever seen. And I think my seed to fly jets was planted that very day. Interestingly enough, I kept playing the scene over and over again in my head over the next couple of days because it had been such a thrill to watch it. But it took me about 3 days to figure out that someone was actually flying the jet. And I thought, how does somebody get to do something like that? And that was when I started going to the school library. There was no internet back in those days, no web, magazines and books. I started digging, reading articles, and came across an article about the Air Force Academy. So that took me down that line. I was a million miles away from achieving that dream. I mean, to get in the Air Force Academy or West Point or the Naval Academy, you have to have a congressional nomination. And my congressman was a strict segregationist that voted against every civil rights bill to come to the floor of the House. My senator was none other than Strom Thurmond, the Dixiecrat nominee. But I figured nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I was able to get a 6th alternate nomination from my congressman. I think he just gave it to me, never thinking that I would actually get in, but to recognize my accomplishments at that time. I have been I've been National Merit Student at Orangeburg High, All-American football player, and Eagle Scout. So I had all the boxes checked. I should have been the principal nominee. They get to nominate one person and then 9 alternates for the one spot. And I was shocked that I actually got in. The key to joy, I think, is to have a passion for the things that you do. I look at flying from the standpoint of view of never having worked a day in my life. And I did it for 32 years. So you're lucky if you can find that thing that you really enjoy doing. And I think it's wonderful that my 2 daughters that I mentioned before have been able to do that as well. They're both artistically inclined, and so they're in artistic career fields. And my youngest daughter, who's 25, she's an interior designer / drafter. She's working for Home Depot because they're redoing all of their stores all around the world. And she gets to design and lay out the kitchens and the baths. And for her, it's the greatest thing. She'll come in and say, I had just a wonderful time today. I did 3 stores. Now it's boring is all out to me, right? But that's what drives her. If you're lucky enough to find that thing in life that you really, really enjoy doing, it's your passion, then you can live a joyous life.